Man.
Nope. All right, so we're talking about the Zephyr team with Tuma, Britton, and I want you to introduce yourself and tell us what was about the Zephyr team and the Z-Boys.
Okay. So my name is Tuma Britton, and I'm third generation Dogtown, and I grew up here in Venice, California my whole life, long before we even had a skate park here. I actually lived in LA until I was 10 years old, and I moved down to Venice with my dad, and Venice wasn't the friendly neighborhood that it is now. Nobody wanted to be in Venice. It was a really, really bad ghetto, but it was a place you could come and just be who you wanted to be and do what you want to do, and nobody would judge that, right? And, back in the day, there was no vendors on the boardwalk. Everything on the west side of the boardwalk was all performers, street performers, comedians, break dancers, jugglers, and it was incredible. It was such a vibrant mix of artists and stuff like that, just displaying their art. And skateboarding was one of those things, I had been skateboarding at a young age. My dad got me my first skateboard when I was 5 years old, and it was an orange Whammo board that he got from this store called Zodi's back in the day, right? Zodi's, yeah. And I remember bombing this little hill when I first got it, like a really baby hill, and I grabbed the rail like it turns, and the tail slid out, and I was like, from that moment on, Wagner, I knew exactly what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I wanted to ride a skateboard. And I had no idea at 5 years old that there was even a skateboard like culture or path or anything like that, My godbrother, who was older, who lived down the block from me when I lived in LA, he actually skated. And so he kind of guided me early on. And then when I moved here at 10 years old, my dad always told me not to come down to Venice. Like I said earlier, it was a really bad ghetto. And so at 11, I made my way down here, because I'm a defiant kid. Do what your parents tell you not to do. You're going to do the opposite, right? And so I made my way down here, and when I got down here, I saw people like Jay Adams and Shogo Kubo and Jim Muir and Scott Oster and Aaron Murray and Aaron Dressen and Kelly Jackson and Tim Jackson, you know what I'm saying? Like, I saw all those people hanging out down here when we used to just have little jump ramps and quarter pipes, and I felt this instantly at home. I'm like, this is my tribe, man. And because skateboarding was so small back then, if you had any talent, they embraced you and brought you into the fold. And I just happened to land at the right place at the right time, not even knowing what this neighborhood and what those people in this culture, those names that I mentioned had done for skateboarding, you know what I mean? They were culture creators, man. Jay Adams was one of the first persons to do something different on a skateboard, and it became an extreme thing, He put more flair to it, right? He put some passion, some style to it, and a lot of that passion comes out of the environment, which we all lived in, you know what I'm saying? The ghetto of Venice. And it comes from having a lot of chaos in your homes, right? A lot of the people that I've looked up to and skated with, they come from chaotic homes where the parents weren't around, or there was alcoholism and drug addiction, and so it was our release, man. And within those type of things, when you're faced with those type of environments, creativity, it can go either way. You become extremely creative and use skateboarding as an outlet, as a way out, skating and surfing, or you can turn to drugs and alcohol and end up, dead or in prison, you know what I mean? And granted to say, all of that was a part of skateboarding back in the day, It was skateboarding, it was partying, it was chicks, it was all that. And that's what I was immersed in at a young age, you know what I mean? Luckily, I had some talent, and the people that were watching me and kind of mentoring me and brought me in the fold was really looking out for me. They made sure that I stayed away from certain things and always protected me. And it was just like such a beautiful, beautiful community to grow up in, Even though there was violence and there was drugs, and there was gangsters and stuff like that. I mean, it was so multicultural. You had the skaters, they were multicultural, black, Mexican, white, Asian. Then you had the black gangs, you had the Mexican gangs, you had the white gangs, and they all lived in the same neighborhood together. And even though gangs were fighting with each other, they all knew everybody, right? So your 5-year-old kid can walk out of the house back in the day, and everybody on the block is going to know that kid, and they're going to make sure he gets fed and gets home. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like it was more of a sense of community back then, you know, because there was no big walls and gates in these houses. I call it porch life. Everybody had porches with low fences. People would be hanging out on their porch, so it was more a communal thing, you know. You go to any ghetto, and it's always like that. They don't have these big houses. Now, there's community, but I feel like you got to be brought into these private little communities, right? You got to be invited into these zones. And in fact, some people don't even know who their neighbors are because they get in their cars, they leave their house to go do what they need to do, and they come home and they drive back in their fortresses, you know? Still community, but less open to everybody, I would say, you know? That's what Venice looks like to me now. Granted, I still love this neighborhood. I still have passion for it. My son is born and raised in Venice, you know what I'm saying? Doesn't really hang out so much here, but by proxy, that's just who he is, you know what I mean? There's a lot of kids here now that parents weren't in the mix, but the kids were born and raised here, you know what I mean? Respect to them. And so, I'm just grateful to have grown up here and had the influences I had, such as like all those names, you know? And thank you to Jeff Ho and Skip Engler for really starting a legacy, starting Zephyr, organizing the kids, getting all these kids that had traumatic lives growing up together and really fostering their talents, you know, and taking them around the contest and like showing the world, like, yeah, it's happening here too, right?
That's beautiful, really. Like, so happy, like, that I can call you my friend, you know?
Oh man, I love you, Wagner.
I'm so happy that we got to meet each other, and from day one, you always got my back here.
100%.
You understand, like, how this place works, you know, and in the beginning, like, I kind of, like, came from Rio and I didn't understand much, but right away, you guys showed me the way, you know, like the guys like you, like Bagel, you know?
Yeah.
And I want to ask you a question about who is the guy who most influenced you, like as a skateboarder, like, that you really look at before?
Who is the guy that most influenced me as a skateboarder?
No, from Venice.
From Venice, I would say Aaron Murray actually was one of the guys who influenced me the most, you know? When I was young, I looked up to Murray, you know what I'm saying? Because he had that, like, he just had that aggressive style, like, go for it, you know what I mean? And, you know, we call him fingers because he had 2 fingers missing. He had part of his pointer finger missing, and then he had his pinky and his middle finger, part of it missing. I think he lost part of his middle finger in what he says, an accident in woodshop, right? And his pinky finger got ripped off on Jimbo's Joff's ramp in the hood. Joff had a vert ramp. Our friend Joff Drinkwater, local Venice, born and raised his whole life. Harry Drinkwater, you know, photographer from the 60s, you know what I mean? Like, amazing, his father. So Joff had a ramp in Venice, and Murray was skating this ramp, and he had a ring on his finger. And the ring got caught on the nail as he was doing a layback run. And it ripped his finger off of the tendon, you know? They grabbed the finger, they put it on ice, they went to the hospital, they're like, we could sew it back on. He's like, I'm already missing half a finger, forget it. You know what I'm saying? Like, hardcore. Murray used to peg his pants, and I'd go home and sew my own pants and peg my pants, like wear Adidas, like I was Aaron Murray. Looked up to you, bro. That was my dude right there, you know what I'm saying?
That's so sick.
And he's one of the dudes that really took care of me, along with Eric Dressen. I remember being a young kid skating down here, and I knew about Dogtown, and I had my boards, and I saw Jim here one day, and I'm like, yo, Jim, I was a little kid, Jim, are you sponsoring anybody? I want to ride for Dogtown. He's like, Dogs, Red Dog's like, no, bro, we're not sponsoring anybody right now. The very next day, I got a phone call from Red Dog, or from Eric Dressen. He's like, Tuma, come over at Red Dog's house. You're on the team. So those dudes rallied around and said, you're putting Tuma on the team. So they got me on Dogtown. So I went to Jim's parents' house in Santa Monica right there. He gave me like 5 boards, and the very next day I was going to shoot my first ad ever in Thrasher magazine with Chuck Katz, Eric, Scott Oster, and Murray. It was for Bones Wheels, man. You know what I'm saying? I'll never forget that day, dude. That was like, my dreams were starting to come true, bro. That's incredible, incredible, yeah.
Venice has this thing like that gave me everything.
Yeah.
Honestly, like gave me the opportunity to work with surfing, you know, gave me the opportunity to meet all my idols, you know, like the Adams, like all of you guys.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful to be part of this family, you know, like, and I'm sure you also, you know, interviewers see you very grateful to be here, you know. And but I want to go a little bit further in your interview in a part of like how was growing up here for you? Like it was just like always this beautiful colors, or you had problems like in your life here, like in terms of like drugs, you know, like alcohol and all of this, like that's my question about you.
Well, the question is, how was it growing up for me? You know, it hasn't always been beautiful. There's been issues for me personally, you know what I'm saying? You know, all of us, right? And like I was saying in the beginning, you know, that you know, this neighborhood was a ghetto. You know, I had some really amazing influences. A lot of them didn't know how to thrive, but they knew how to survive, right? So I was really taught how to survive at a young age. I've been on my own since I was 14. You know, my dad hasn't been around. He moved to Louisiana. My mom moved to Louisiana. So I've been by myself since I was 14. So the people I had to look up to, you know, they were nurturing and loving because it was a family, but they were also dysfunctional, right? A lot of people, right? And there was a lot of drugs around because that's what Venice was about back in the day. A lot of drugs, a lot of crime, you know what I mean? And so, people weren't coming out of this place with huge college educations or trust funds or anything like that. And so, you know, I started smoking weed at a young age, right? And I managed that for a long time. And then other drugs came into the scene as I got older, you know, and it never took me away like super quick. But as I got older in my later 30s, you know, I started using those things to cope with life, right? I'd get emotional or something tragic would happen in my life, and I didn't know how to balance my emotions. No one ever taught me that because the influence I was around, nobody really looked after their emotions. I don't think a lot of people were taught to do that, you know what I mean? So a lot of us, the way we learn how to cope is turn to drugs and alcohol to numb ourselves, man, you know? And that's just my story. Some people aren't in that mold. Some people didn't do that, or they were able to do those things and then it not take over their lives. But unfortunately for me, or fortunately, I don't know, it became a serious problem in my life. And you know, eventually I had to really take a look at that. Look at why I was still turning to substances to try to fix my problems. You know what I'm saying? And you know, that really taking a serious look at that has changed my life, man. You know what I mean? I'm better able to manage when I get into states of like sadness or anxiety. I don't have to turn to those things, you know. I've really been practicing a lot of Buddhism for the last couple of years, you know, which has helped with the mind stream a lot. I've been a part of this native community for 12 years, which is all about prayer. You know, we do sweat lodge ceremony, we go to Sundance, and you know, I have a therapist right now, and I don't make any I won't apologize for any of those things because it's all about me taking care of my inner self, you know. I also have a child that I need to be an example to, right? I don't want him to see me struggling with those things, you know, because apple doesn't fall far from the tree, you know what I'm saying? He sees those things and then it becomes an okay thing. But if you see his dad overcome adversity, then it will instill in him that he has the strength to do that as well, you know? So yeah, it's been a journey, man. It's been hard. This neighborhood was hard. This is a hard neighborhood to grow up in, especially then, man. 80s and 90s were really hard around here. I'd see people come from other states with these huge dreams of being an actor or whatever. They come and move to Venice. 6 months, they're turned out, cracked out, and have to go back to wherever they came from. It wasn't easy to live around here, man. It was very, very difficult, you know?
Drug addiction is a serious problem here, like in Venice, but everywhere in the world, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm glad that nowadays we are sober, you know, with our lives like
Yeah.
we don't need to numb ourselves, like to don't feel our emotions. I think
Exactly.
it's very important to feel our emotions.
Yeah.
You know, like without numb ourselves with drugs, you know,
For sure.
but let's go back to this beautiful part of being on the Zephyr team, you know, and then I remember that you got invited to be part of Lords of Dogtown, the movie. Talk about that one, please.
So the question is, I got invited to be part of Lords of Dogtown. Well, it's wild because, you know, my friend Brian Zarati, who had passed away a few years ago, rest in peace, Brian. He was dating Catherine Hardwick, who was the director for the movie Lords of Dogtown. And she was actually the wardrobe lady on Ration back in the day, right? So she had some experience there, right? And so when they start casting for the movie, right, they wanted to bring in as many Venice, like, born and bred locals that were still skating at the time, right? And so there was, you know, on the Zephyr team, I think there was one black guy, right? He was Zephyr and Z-Flex, Marty Grimes, right? Marty Grimes was the one dude. So they called me up to play the part of Marty Grimes, man, and it was such an honor, you know. I didn't have any speaking parts, but I got to skate the most amazing pools for like 3 weeks on set. It was such a good time. It was incredible. And I met some of my closest friends on that movie, like, you know, my boy Donger, you know, Don Nugent, who now has a Spassburger spot right here. He played Shogo Kubo, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and my boy Shane Magnuson played Red Dog, you know what I mean? All these kids that I got to meet, bro. It was, we were all, you know, really doing well right now. It was an incredible experience, man, you know. You know, and the movie came out pretty good. I you know, what I heard is that David Fincher wanted to do the movie originally, but he wanted to build a pier in Mexico. So he didn't have to deal with the studios, right? And they didn't want to do that. So, you know, Catherine Hardwick did the movie, and it was a good film. She did a great job. It captured as much as it could of what really went down here. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it was a beautiful experience, man. Yeah. Now they need to do another one about the 80s and 90s Venice. You know what I'm saying? That's the next Dogtown film.
That's a great idea.
Right.
And how was working with Heath Ledger, right? Like in the movie.
I wasn't on set with Heath Ledger, unfortunately, you know. And they brought me in later on. I think everything that he was in, they either shot separate or he was already done with his scenes, right? And so I didn't get to meet Heath Ledger, but you know, Victor Razuk, who played Tony Alva, and then the guy who played, you know, Jay Adams, you know, real cool cats. I got to meet those dudes. The kid who played Jay Adams actually grew up in Venice as well, you know, but he's on more of the, you know, his family's in entertainment, so he wasn't really hanging out as a kid so much, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, and tragic loss of Heath Ledger shortly after that film.
Yeah,
you know?
luckily I have like here. Alan Sarlo, in his interview, he shared with me like a big part of Heath Ledger talking to him, you know.
Oh, amazing! Yeah.
And, that's how I I figured out a little bit more about that guy. He was a cool guy.
Yeah, he was a really cool guy, and you know, I think he suffered from alcoholism. You know what I'm saying? It's and then things just got the better of him, man. You know what I mean? One of those tragic stories is someone that it's always tragic for me that he dies, but he was such a beautiful talent, you know, and died, I feel, far too young.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
He left his legacy here, like, for sure.
Yeah, no,
Rest in
absolutely.
peace,
Rest in peace,
like he pleasure, you know. And yeah, I'm grateful to have you here, like here. So let's talk about now, like here. Who is Tuma nowadays, you know?
Who's Tuma nowadays? It's a good question, actually, Wagner. Who is Tuma nowadays? I'd like to first say that Tuma, Eric, Tuma's my nickname, came from my buddy Morgan, Shags. You know, we all have nicknames in Venice. Won't go into details as to how I got that, but Eric is still 100% skateboarder, always will be, in and out, it's in my soul. And I'm also a teacher. I teach kids how to skate. I've been doing it for 17 years, you know, and I'm able to pass on what was passed on to me, you know, because when I was growing up, there was no formal teaching, right? And my mentors, you know, they taught me in an informal way by me watching and being supportive to me. They taught me a lot of good things, but they also taught me things that didn't serve me, right? So now I get to teach kids things that not only skateboarding, but it's more than skateboarding, because what skateboarding has done for me, without me even knowing it, it's taught me perseverance. It's taught me tenacity. It's taught me how to never give up. You know, that's that perseverance. And, you know, no matter what, you keep going, right? And so whenever I get a new client and I'm talking to the parents, I always convey that to them. Like, this isn't just about skateboarding. This is life lessons right here, man, because it does so much for your spirit. When you work on something really hard and you accomplish it, and it will bleed into other areas of your life without you even recognizing it. You know what I'm saying? So Tuma's an educator. Tuma's still a skateboarder, you know. Tuma's also a surfer, you know, and Tuma's working on him in himself. Tuma's a father, right? I am all those things. I do all those things, and you know, and I'm grateful, man. I'm grateful to still be here. I tell you that much. And what you were talking about earlier about being grateful how we embrace you. Well, Wagner, you come from the same cloth. You're just on the other side, you know what I'm saying? Because the way you showed up to the neighborhood, it was like, oh, he's from Brazil, but we recognize this. It's the same thing, you know what I mean? I feel like if I were to go to Brazil, your awareness of how to navigate, like I can go anywhere. Also, that comes from skateboarding and my awareness of how to navigate the city and what's going on around me. I know how to step, right? Another thing beautiful about being a skateboarder, throughout the years, it's such a family that I've met people from all over the world, because Venice was like the #1 place everyone wanted to come, you know? It's still the second biggest tourist attraction in California outside of Disneyland. But I met so many people from around the world that I could go anywhere in the world and have places to stay. I could show up at the skate park and have an instant family. That's what it's done for me, you know? That's what it does for people, you know? And so I'm all about it still, man.
I remember that we were in Bali and you were like here, oh Wagner, come hang out here and there, and you're hanging out here with Rizal Tajong, you know, like he's a good friend, and you're like, oh, I'm with Rizal, and I'm like, shout out to you, my brother Rizal.
Yeah, brother.
And yeah, we've been all over the world, like, and I'm so thankful to be a friend, like, and the way you got my back here. But how did you start to surf? That's my question.
How did I start surfing? Well,
you started to skate first and then surf?
I skated first, started skating at 5 years old. I got pretty good, right, at skateboarding, and wasn't as interested in surfing, right? But then, you know, being in Venice, growing up around people like Ricky Massey was a really close friend of mine my whole life. He used to have a mini ramp in his backyard, and we would skate the hell out of that thing all the time, right? be at his house, you know, Juanita and stuff would always be yelling at us kids. Juanita is his mom, you know what I'm saying? Like all his brothers and sisters were there, and they were doing what they do, right? You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? And you know, Ricky wasn't much of a skater. He could skate, but he was a surfer, right? He was a surfer. He was a sponsored surfer, and so when I was younger, I'd go surf every once in a while with those guys, but I wouldn't even call it surfing. I didn't know what I was doing. The water was always cold. They always take me out like at zeros or something when it was like 10 feet. And, you know, I was a little kid, man. I'm like, yeah, this is not the business for me, dude. So I used to live right in here on Wave Crest, right? And when I was about 36, 35. And my girlfriend at the time, who's my son's mom now, Ona, we lived together, and she had this surfboard. And I wasn't skating as much, so I started surfing every single day, dude. She had a 9-foot Anderson high-performance thruster longboard, like shaped by sky. It was beautiful. So I started surfing every day. No matter what it was like, I started surfing, and I started learning how to ride that thing. You know what I'm saying? I was riding like a shortboard. I didn't walk the nose, right? And then from there, once I learned how to position myself and really get in the waves and really control the board, I was hooked. That's all I wanted to do, man. That's still all I want to do, surf, you know? The dream for me is to live in Puerto Escondido or somewhere like that where I could have good ways to go surf every day. Yeah. Yes. And warm water. Yeah.
The question I have for you, like Bagel, obviously your friend, you know, like, and in his interview, like he comes to me and like one of my favorite pictures is this picture of Tuma, you know. Like,
oh, I know which picture he's talking about, right?
Picture. Talk about that picture. How was that moment?
Oh,
You guys underage smoking, like, and he took that picture of you. Like, tell me about it.
so Bagel speaks in the interview about, you know, about one of his favorite pictures. You know, he's talking to We Are Venice about one of his favorite pictures. My friend Josh Kalssman, we call him Bagel. Like I said before, everybody in Venice has nicknames. They're not always kind, right? They're not always kind, but when somebody gives you a nickname, if you like it, like, oh yeah, I love it, then it's not going to stick. You have to hate it for a long time, right? They're going to keep calling you that, and then eventually you'll just accept it, right? So Bagel, we call him Bagel. So maybe I haven't figured that out, but so Bagel was at Venice High at the time, right? And he had a photo class, right? And he was taking pictures, and he always had his camera on him out here when it was kind of ghetto, you know. And like I was about 12 years old, man, and already smoking fatties at that time, right? And it's in a series of pictures. There's me, there's my buddy Little Man, and another friend of mine, Joey Tran, right? That was my crew. It was me, Little Man, Joey Tran, Jack, my boy Henry Jernigan, my buddy Yancey. Like we had like a crew of like 10 of us that we would just roll with and skate all the time. But that day it was just us three, and we happened to be on the wall. There used to be a wall that they would build quarter pipes on, and we were on the other side of the wall, and we're all smoking a joint, and Bagel walked up and started taking pictures, right? But then he got this one picture of me smoking this fatty that's like, it's pretty much a roach at this point, you know, and I'm just taking a hit. I'm 12 years old, and it's like smoke's coming off of it. It's a really good picture. A lot of people have bought it, actually. People love it. In fact, the manager of the Wu-Tang saw it at an art show, and his wife bought it for him for his birthday, and it's in his pool house, dude. You know what I'm saying? So all the homies, all the rappers that he manages, they go in that and they see that thing, you know. So yeah, it was. I barely even remember that moment, Bagel. You know what I mean? That was so long ago, and so much has transpired in between that time. But when I think about it and look at it, I'm like, wow. Those are some good times, bro. Those are some really good times, you know? Carefree, taken care of, sponsored skateboarding, you know? Traveling throughout the country, entering contests, getting products, you know what I'm saying? Just like living that life. It's great, dude. Real stuff. Yeah, it was amazing.
The question I have for you just to finish this interview, just a message that, because I know like people think smoke marijuana is cool, you know, people think drinking is cool. And myself, in my opinion, you know, like, and I hope everybody respects that.
Yeah.
I think like we shouldn't be numbing ourselves, you know, with drugs or alcohol or like this, you know. So I want you to leave the lesson for the new generation of here. You know, like how to live life, you know, and find like happiness in different ways.
Just to like kind of synopsis again, you know, drugs and alcohol and in our society in Western culture, drugs and alcohol are glorified. Like, it's something that's cool and it's promoted, and like there's this aura around it, like it's necessary to function, or if you go to a party you have to drink to talk to women and these type of things, you know, and then it's fun, and then it becomes a problem after a while when you start using it to cope with life because you don't know how to handle your emotions, you know. And so, you know, and that's my experience. And you know, any message that I would even convey for young kids is like, kids are going to experiment, man. You know what I'm saying? But if someone can't do something in moderation and it starts to take over their entire lives and it starts to become an issue and they start getting arrested or they start getting in trouble or they can't pay their bills or whatever it is, you know, or they have no focus or direction, you know, I would suggest you leave it alone, man, you know? And if you're underage, I would suggest you don't do it at all. It's really dangerous now because, you know, my son's 15 years old. I'm sure my son's going to experiment. But when I was experimenting at his age, fentanyl wasn't around. So I know a lot of people now that fentanyl's in weed. It's in all the pills on the street. It's in cocaine. It's in everything. And so people are dying at an alarming rate, you know? And it's always sad when a kid that's just beginning his life has his life taken because of drugs, you know? And so I can't stop anybody, but I can only share my experience and what I had to go through, you know, to realize that my life is much more precious than these things, you know what I'm saying? In my opinion, having some type of spiritual path, and I don't want to say religion necessarily, or some type of mentor, or, you know, some type of service or something, you know what I mean? Some type of hobby, some type of activity, skateboard, surf, you know, get involved in those type of things that might help you to stay away and get more focused. A lot of it has to do also with the adults, man. Adults have to rally around kids and support them, you know what I'm saying? Because it's really rough out in the world today, and, you know, it starts with parents, man. It starts with the parents, it starts with other adults, it starts with the... When I was a kid, my neighbor down the street could discipline me, right? Everybody on the block could discipline me, right, as a kid. Nowadays, kids don't have respect for their elders, man. You know what I mean? Because you can't discipline somebody else's child. You go to jail for that, right? What happened to it takes a village. It really does take a village to raise a kid properly, you know, because not one parent can do it alone, man. It's an army of people. It's a collective, you know, a collective mind. We want these kids to be okay. We all have to participate in that, you know what I'm saying? So, I don't know. Respect the elders, kids. And elders, listen to the kids, you know, it goes both ways. You know, there needs to be dialogue happening a lot more for kids to stay away from drugs. Let them have a voice. Let them be heard. You know what I'm saying?
So thank you for, you know, sharing your story with me.
Thank you, Wagner. Love you, brother. Yeah, appreciate
you, brother.
Wagner doing a good thing. We are Venice. We are Venice.
We are family, we are Venice.
We're a family, we're a Venice.